Crash and burn.
Hey everybody! So tonight I would like to discuss, when the hell was this written? Oh yes, Flowers for Algernon. This is Dan Key's 1958 full-on novelization, not the short story that he had written a few years prior. I am looking to discuss, well, briefly discuss, the entire novel of Flowers for Algernon. Hey guys, sorry to jump in like this. It's just the other review that I just cut off, I didn't really get into it as much as I should because this book has a lot to sort of unpack, as it were. So yeah, I'll probably do that now. Not probably, I'm gonna do it now. So yeah, whatever. This is one of the most difficult books I've ever read. I've read it now, I think, 3 times through in my entire life. Everything about this book is sad. First off, the author, Daniel Keyes, originally it was published as a short story. I think it was published in 50 or 51. Well, anyways, it doesn't matter. It was published completely. I believe the short story as well as the novel, the complete novel, where they were both published in the early 50s. But anyways, the reason that Daniel Keyes felt compelled to write this novel was because his parents, they didn't want him to be a writer. They wanted him to go to med school. So he wasn't able to get into med school, and so he wrote a book about science finding a way to increase the intelligence of a human, um, exponentially so that this human, they start out at like a 4 and by the end they're like a 12 intelligence wise. And I mean, it's obvious why he wrote this book, and it was because he clearly felt that he had let his parents down by not being able to get into med school. But you're only born with what you're born with, right? Like, I mean, pretty much from birth it's determined if whether or not you're going to become a doctor or a lawyer. But the fact that he wasn't able to get into med school, that's one thing that's sad and everything and sort of disappointing for his parents. But the fact that he was able to write such a strong and such an enduring novel like Flowers for Algernon, I think that's actually more of a contribution to human history than had he actually become a doctor, like a GP or a surgeon or whatever. So I think it's incredibly sad that he did feel compelled to write this book because it looked as though he was letting his parents down by not being able to do what they wanted him to do. So he writes this book about a dude by the name of Charlie Gordon. Charlie Gordon, by any stretch, is not the smartest man in the world. I believe at the beginning of the book, he has an IQ of 70, I believe. I almost said 1970 for some reason. But yeah, I believe his IQ is 70 at the beginning of the book. And he works in a bakery with a bunch of people who he believes are his friends, and yet they're not. They just bully him left, right, and center, and they're always making fun of Charlie because he's stupid. And he's always writing these journals, of course, because that's part of the procedure that he's going to be given. The what's it called? The Gordon Algernon something or other is what the experiment is being called. So he has to write these progress reports. And at the beginning of the book, he loves to write and everything, but his spelling is so poor. Like, he spells the word read with 2 E's, and he spells the word write by leaving the W out and just the RITE. And progress is PROGIS, I believe. And his spelling is absolutely atrocious. And again, that is because his IQ is 70. And like I said, everybody at the bakery is brutal to him, and yet Charlie really believes that these guys are his friends. And they're unrelenting in their brutality. Like, every time they turn around, they're like, someone's doing an impression of him, like, "There comes Charlie," or some shit like that. And Charlie thinks it's funny because he thinks this is how friends behave. And it's only after the procedure has kicked in and he's had the surgery and his intelligence has begun this exponential increase that he begins to put together that these people weren't his friends and that in fact he never had any friends. And as his intelligence begins to increase, um, he realizes that he forgot his parents' names. And because he was placed in an institute for, I mean, as nicely worded as this was, because it's the 50s, it was an institute for, I can't remember the name of the institute, but it was an institution for retarded adults. And yeah, at one point, he's like, "Oh my God, I remembered my parents' names." And he attempts to meet his father. His parents have long since split up, and his father owns a barbershop. And he goes in and everything when he's smart Charlie and he's educated Charlie. And Charlie, once the education kicks in, like the brain power starts to, the exponential increase becomes a reality. He can suck up a book in like 5 seconds. And he has his own study room set up at the local university where he's left alone because he tends to mesmerize all the students around him who are there doing like their traditional studies. there's Charlie. Like, he grabs a book and it's like, yep, the book's done and I know everything about it. He picks up like a handful of languages, but along the way, Charlie doesn't have any friends. And Charlie starts to put together that intelligence without compassion is meaningless. And he realizes now that he doesn't have any friends because people are afraid of him because he's too smart. Everybody around him feels inferior, so he has no friends. And as he's since put together that his friends from before, they weren't his friends. The only reason that they associated with him was so that they could victimize and bully him. And so he feels continuously isolated, more and more so, to the point where he just kind of feels like he just wants to be left alone because no matter where he goes, he can't catch a break. He was stupid, people made fun of him. Now that he's incredibly smart, people are afraid of him. And according to the people in his life, like Dr. Niemer, and there's a few other doctors in this, what's the name of the chick that he loves? I can't remember her name. What the hell was that? Oh, it was my speaker. Anyways, yeah, so he kind of falls in love. He starts dating this chick named Faye, but nobody really connects to him because nobody really can, because intellectually speaking, he's kind of on an island by himself because he's just too smart. And I don't know, like, eventually, see, he's in these tests with a mouse by the name of Algernon. And Algernon, they've given the same experiment, the same surgery to, where they've conducted the same experiment. And the mouse is suddenly able to whip through these mazes and everything with such a ridiculous amount of ease because, again, Algernon, the mouse's intelligence, is, again, exponentially increasing. And then throughout about 2/3 of the way through the book, Charlie puts together that Algernon seems to be regressing. And before long, Algernon not only can't do the mazes at all, but he passes away. And I think it was because his tiny little mouse brain wasn't big enough to deal with the increase and then the decrease in such a short amount of time. And even though mice themselves, they only live for 3 or 4 years to begin with, so when you do this to a mouse's brain, it doubles up the chances that it's going to die quicker than it should. And this freaks Charlie out because he realizes that if that happened to Algernon, it's going to happen to him. And that's exactly what happened. His spelling begins to go back to the way it was before. He starts to panic. At one point towards the end of the book, he begs in his journal. He says, please don't let me forget how to read and write. But by that point, he was spelling read with 2 E's and write without the W again. So his intelligence is decreasing exponentially. And there are some realizations that he comes to throughout the course of this book. Like I said a minute ago, is it page 167 or is it... it was 154. Hang on, where are we here? The depressing thing is that so many of the ideas on which our psychologists base their beliefs about human intelligence, memory, and learning are all wishful thinking. Because Charlie's beginning to realize that intelligence is fleeting and that with intelligence without emotional connections or compassion is worthless. And that, I think, he touches on... Where is it? Blah, blah, blah. No, I can't find it. I'm not going to bother. But somewhere in the book, he discusses how intelligence without compassion is worthless. And how, like, if you don't have people around you to share your newfound intelligence with, it has no value whatsoever. And he begins to feel like he's being hunted by the old Charlie, because once he becomes smart, the things that he used to do when he was dumb seem so alien and foreign to him that it's like, why would I ever do that? But then as his intelligence is decreasing towards the end of the novel, those ideas begin to creep back in, so he starts again to feel like he's being stalked by the old him. Like, whatever it was, I don't know why I did that before when I was stupid, but suddenly it's making sense to do that again, and he frames it as the old me is coming for the new me. And yeah, this book is absolutely brutal. There's nothing about this book that's good. It's a hell of a read. It's a compelling, like, enthralling read. Like, you won't be able to put it down, especially once you see the roller coaster ride start to unfold for Charlie and how his intelligence starts to fucking catapult upwards. And it's exciting. And then when it starts to crash down at the end, it's absolutely heartbreaking. And it's just terrifying to watch him regress at such a rate. Like, it's like 9/10 of the book are, his intelligence going up, and then the last 1/10 of the book is it just crashing and burning, and Charlie's left worse off than he was before because he knows nobody was his friend when he was stupid. The one good thing I can say, though, is he goes back to work at the bakery for a bit that he was working at the start, and the guys in the bakery actually like him now. And they're his friends because one of them makes a crack and the other two say, if you do that again, like, we'll fucking break your neck. Leave Charlie alone. So in that sense, it's kind of nice. But nevertheless, he feels compelled to leave town because there's too many connections to his past. And he leaves. And that's how the book ends. So yeah, that's where I'm going to leave it. This book is incredibly sad. So, like always, thank you so much for hanging out with me for, wow, Jesus, actually a little longer than 10 minutes or probably more like 12 or something, though. I always get the times wrong. But like always, thank you for hanging out with me. Sorry, well, I discussed Daniel Keyes' 1951 novel, Flowers for Algernon. Like always, if you like this review or you like this book, don't forget to go out and do something nice for somebody. But most importantly, like always, none of this matters unless you feel good about yourself, okay? Who gives a fuck about anything unless you feel good? And if right now you're not feeling the best, just remember that you fucking kick ass. And you're not alone. And there's a lot of people out there who are in the same boat that you are. And there's a hell of a lot of people out there that can help. Never feel like anything's over with because it's not. Just hold on. I'm getting out of here. Have a good night.